Now, the Fort Hare Foundation says it aims to raise funds for students receiving NSFAS funding, but finding it does not cover all their costs. The foundation is trusted with raising funds for the university. Let's speak to Sibulele Ngozi, University of Fort Hare Foundation Resource Mobilization Manager. Ms. Ngozi, thank you for being with us. First, let's put this into context. I was really interested, apparently, of the 17,000 or so students at Fort Hare, apparently a whopping 98% are receiving NSFAS funding. Is that true? And then, of course, that would make this hugely important.
Good evening, Francis, and good evening to your viewers. Firstly, it's not 70,000, it's 17,000.
17, I apologize here.
And 98% of those students are NSFAS qualifying students. So that alone really speaks to the student profile that the university has to work with. So it also emphasizes on our fundraising efforts that they are rather more of an emergency than something we would rather consider a luxury or just a job.
Yeah.
So it goes beyond the job that you sign a contract for. So yes, so the Fort Hare Foundation is entrusted with fundraising for the university, and we do this through various means. And the first one of those is basically bursaries. We find over 500 students in the university. And we also have career development programs that are designed to, combat unemployment. And these are not only limited to University of Fort Hare students. We have a collaborative space in the university, Phyllis Ndandala building, and it's open to Walter Sisulu University, University of South Africa, and the University of Fort Hare. So we are trying to reach out to as many students in the province that are in need of our services, because we understand that it's not something of their making. With the economic conditions in the country, a lot of students found themselves qualifying for NSFAS. After COVID-19 effects in our country, now we are faced with that burden, and we are also having some issues where students that are qualifying for NSFAS but aren't getting NSFAS, other issues relating to when the fees are paid. And those things fall upon us as the foundation, because the students, yes.
We've also heard that sometimes because of the cap on residence funding, for example, the students are still short and then they just can't cover that shortfall. I mean, just take us through some of the challenges that students are having if they are receiving NSFAS funds and how you can help. So basically, ours as the foundation, we are a separate entity from the university. We are governed by a board that we account to. So when those things happen within the institution, then we come in as that separate entity. And ours is to get the information from the university about the students that would need that type of assistance. And ours is to get that type of funding. And, already in our student debt campaign, we've already raised over 7 million for those kinds of things. Because in the end of the day, it's the voice of the students that in all this noise needs to be, attended to. And what has been the case, Francis, is that a student would be able to register, and in the hope of, because they applied for NSFAS, they are going to receive NSFAS. And by the time around April, the end of the first quarter going to the second quarter of the year, they realize that they are not funded. And the only institution that is, and the office that is responsible for fundraising is the Fort Hare Foundation. And those students, rightfully so, call upon us to raise those funds. And I would be lying if I would say that we don't have overwhelming support from some of the funders, such as the Stene Mula, who funds our science program, incita for our comments, students, and many other funders that come through when we put out that call. What we are also trying to emphasize. Yes, Deb.
I'm sorry to cut in there, but just in the space of time, I'm glad you brought up donors, because Fort Hare has faced a lot of negative coverage. There's been murders, there's been claims that qualifications have been sold to politicians, and I see finally that you have moved to alleviate anxiety among those donors, and saying that there are two different institutions. Firstly, what else would you say to them?
Firstly, I would just say that the Fort Hare Foundation has always had solid governance. We've always had clean audits from Auditor General, and we've always had have no findings in our audits through PwC. So we have solid governance as the Fort Hare Foundation, and our donors and stakeholders have no reason to actually worry. And we use different events to actually ensure that we have touch points with our donors constantly, like annual golf days. We have a Chancellor's Golf Days. We have one in Johannesburg for our stakeholders there, and we have one in the Eastern Cape for our stakeholders here. And the Joburg one is on the 21st of July in Houghton Golf Club, where we are going to have all our stakeholders, all our alumni in one room, and we are going to send a strong message that the voice of the students and the needs of the students need to be prioritized, and the Fort Hare Foundation is already doing amazing work in that direction. So,
all right. Thank you very much. We have to end it there. So if you fancy a bit of golf that coming up, and of course you'll be helping those students, Sibulele Ngozi, University of Fort Hare Foundation Resource Mobilization Manager.